Okay, here is the pattern that you will see, the PDF, when you downloaded it. And of course, I instructed to download and also cut and score. So if you're just working from this white sheet or whatever color you printed your pattern onto, that's great. What I did was I printed this onto text weight paper, and then I transferred all of those pattern pieces into color so that the model I'm building right now will look just like the color model that you saw in the email. You're going to have this PDF forever. Should you keep it, you're going to have this recording. So if right now you want to make a practice white version and then come back and make a fancy one later, or if you've got some color paper to work with, or if you want to do some hand coloring as we're working right now, all of that is great. All of that is great. You've got lots of options in front of you. In the meantime, I'm pulling these pieces into view. We have our 2 flower pieces, which for me are pink, magenta. I have 2 leaf pieces. I have a stem piece, all these pattern pieces that I'm going to keep handy because they'll help me remember what side is the front, and then our card piece. And we're going to start by grabbing these 2 flower pieces, and the pattern tells us that this center fold on this larger piece is a mountain because it's got that longer, broader dash line to it. So we're going to have that mountain fold up towards the front, and then valley folds that recede, that are down off on the sides. On the smaller pink piece, it's just a valley fold right down the middle. We're going to link these 2 pieces together. And we have 2 slots in the larger piece, and we have closed slots, and we have open slots on the smaller pink piece. And basically these sections out on the side are tabs that we're going to use to lock the pieces together. So I'm just going to do a real quick little fold over. And I'll do that on both sides. And again, that valley fold is facing up, facing the front. And I'm going to slide these tabs into the slot, tabs on the left, slot on the left, back to front. And once I slide that whole section through, I'm going to unlock the tabs on the front, or open them up, and it locks those tabs in position. I'm going to do the same on the right side. Once you've got the tabs through and everything is open and locked, collapse your flower in half on the center folds just to make sure that it'll do it. Pop-ups pretty much always have to collapse flat. Let's make sure we can do it. I'm going to put that down on the table. I'm going to grab my 2 leaf pieces next. I'm going to pull out some glue. I'm using PVA today. Good, strong, flexible, permanent, fast setting glue. And we're going to glue the 2 leaf pieces together. And again, with the leaves, we know we're looking at the front of the leaves because that long center fold is a valley fold, a receding fold. And you'll see that with these 2 leaves sitting here, They're resting vertically. I've got the valley folds pointing up, and the leaf on the right is the one that's got that additional little mountain fold down here in the lower left. I'm going to apply glue to that whole little wedge down there. And then I'm going to flip over the leaf that's on the right. I'm going to tuck under this little wedge that's got glue on it in a second, and then drop it over the top of the left leaf and line up the edges. So one is resting right on top of the other. Okay, so in real time, belly folds are up. My little wedge is down here on the lower left. You can see where the glue is going. Here's some glue on my finger. I've got that little wedge pushed over a little bit so that I can apply glue to the wedge and push it up against the fold without being super concerned about glue going past the fold. Because we don't want glue to go somewhere where it doesn't belong. It just makes things crazy. Flipping over this left leaf. Mountain side of the fold is showing. And then drop the right leaf over the top and line up the edges. Pretty carefully, pretty carefully. So there's how our two leaves join. You might have noticed on your card piece that there are two shadowy shapes printed on the left side. And these are our glue positioning marks. We're going to give our attention to this top one first. And for me, because I printed it and then I transferred it to a second sheet, I also made some little poke marks through that shadow and onto the color stock underneath it, so I can see where those glue guides are on this sheet. They're two little poke marks. You may or may not be able to see them through my camera. But either way, we're going to glue this little arcing tab that's on the lower left onto that top smaller shadowy glue guide. And as we do that, we're going to make sure that all of these folds of the flower, that point where they all come together in the center, is resting super precisely right on the center fold of the card. So here's some glue. Working with the fold on the left that I'm pinching between my fingers right now. I'll apply glue to the back of it. Again, I kind of have the tab folded over a little bit, so it's easy to apply glue to the edge, but not go beyond. And then drop it onto the card. Lining the tab over the glue guide, making sure that center where all the folds come together hits right at the fold in the card. Things will get crazy down here if we're not precise about that. Now I'm folding the bloom here in half, collapsing it along the center fold. It's now tucked into the edges of the card, so it won't be sticking out and get banged up later. That's good. And we're going to use this technique that we call the natural sticking point to mount the second tab. So I'm folding that one over the second tab. So now I'm looking at the back of it, and I'll apply glue to that second tab, and then I'll just close the card and stick it on there. So bloom is collapsed in half. Tab is folded back, so I'm looking at the back side. I'm applying glue. Close the card, sticking it to that second tab. We're basically going to follow that very same approach to mount the leaves into the card. I have this longer shadowy shape that's lower. This whole entire left side of the left leaf is going to mount to that glue guide. I have again transferred those positions to the card, so it'll be easy for me to see. Gluing up the back, dropping it into the card. I just saw a question slide through. If someone would like to read it to me. And I'll keep this train on the tracks.
Yeah, I was just asking about, I've never used glue before. I always use double-sided tape, and I wondered if that was, if it was recommended to use glue, if that was better. And there's two different school of thoughts in the chat at the moment, which is one, it requires more precision if you use double-sided tape, but then I think some of us are just used to using double-sided tape, and we hadn't really thought of using glue, so we never really thought of the advantages of glue. Anyway, that was it. Thank you.
My double-sided tape right here. I use it all the time. I use it all the time. I love using double-sided tape. Yeah, and right now, I would probably use glue for this anyway, but it totally doesn't matter. As long as you're happy with how your tape works. And, you know, again, in the book arts world, folks have some concerns about conservation quality of tapes. And so using the tape that Talas, T-A-L-A-S, bookbinding supply company in New York, or something comparable, you know, that's really great. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, use the material that makes you happy, for sure. It does the job, and it lets you work with the materials the way you like. The first side of that leaf is mounted. I'm going to engage that first fold. I'm going to engage the second fold. I'm going to engage the third fold. And now the leaves are folded up and all stacked. That last section, that rightmost section of the leaves is now flipped over and on top. And I'm going to apply glue to that whole section. And then again, I'm going to close the card so that I can do natural sticking point. But as I do that, I need to tuck the bloom in between the leaves so that the leaf sticks completely to the card and it doesn't get stuck on the flower. So let me do that slow. Leaning over, I'm 1 minute over. We just have one more step after this, so we're going to be super close to time. And again, if folks need to zip away, it's all recorded, and that link will be available super soon. You can see I'm kind of just applying glue against the fold. I'm not being super concerned about spreading it all the way across that section of the leaf. So I'm all folded, I'm all stacked. I'm going to lift up this little edge of the leaf so that the flower drops between the leaves, and then close the card. Kind of some long folds that are stacked up in there. They're holding some tension. You might need a couple extra seconds of setup time, depending on how much adhesive you used and what kind of adhesive you're using. that worked pretty well for me. Our very last step then is simply take that stem piece and tuck that into a stem-like place so that it connects leaves to bloom. You can kind of play with the angle in there however you like. It's not gonna impact the structure of the thing, so you can play with that a little if you like. We need to do a quick gallery moment before we all say goodbye. We also are going to give a quick moment of some special attention to my friend John, who has taken a number of workshops with me, and frequently I give him patterns in white and he watercolor paints them, and then he builds pop-ups during my workshops that are based on his watercolors, and they're fantastic. So, John, are you ready?
Yep.
Here's John's tulip. It looks great.
That looks fabulous.